I was first diagnosed with PTSD in 2006 after my first operational tour as a combat medical technician. Subsequently, I underwent various treatment methods under DCMH and deployed on a further 4 operational tours of Iraq and Afghanistan. During this time, I battled with my personal demons and found it very difficult to discuss my feelings with anyone connected to the military because of the stigma attached to mental health and the supposed weakness that was connected with mental health conditions. In 2013, whilst working in a recruitment role, I sought further help from DCMH and was placed on sick leave. In 2014, I got married to my husband, who was still serving. Due to the medication that I was taking, my wedding day wasn't the fairy tale that I imagined.
Don't worry, take your time, it's fine. Stop if you need to.
It's all right. And it was devoid of emotion and feeling. A few months later, the medical board deemed me unfit for any further service and recommended that I was medically discharged from the army, which happened in mid-2015. No, it's okay. Yeah. In the run-up to my discharge, I was offered one last round of EMDR. I was also pregnant with my first child. Throughout the first 6 months of the pregnancy, I was on medication for PTSD. I was assured by a military doctor that the medication was safe during pregnancy. Whilst pregnant, I had become quite unwell mentally and was having thoughts of harming myself. My husband was away multiple times during this time, causing me to spiral further into my depression. I eventually found myself as an inpatient at mental health hospital, where I was removed from my medication called Turkey. In 2016, my husband was posted to Cornwall, where I couldn't have been any further away from my support network. When we first arrived, my son was 6 months old, and we were housed in the middle of nowhere. This didn't help my postnatal depression, which was later diagnosed, or my PTSD. As soon as we arrived and unpacked, my husband was sent away for 6 weeks, leaving me alone in a new place with our young son with no support or help from the military. Whilst in Cornwall, I had approached the GP for help with my mental health. I was told to take these pills and you will be okay. I walked out of the GP a little bit confused. I knew the services were out there, but was being given meds and sent on my way. I spoke to the welfare team at the unit, voicing my concerns about my mental health. I was told to leave my husband and go live up north. He could come home once a month. I approached the GP again because I didn't want to leave my husband or take medication. And the doctor told me if I didn't take them, he couldn't refer me to the specialist that I needed help from. In 2018, the thoughts of suicide started to creep back in. I was functioning well outside the home, at work, and holding it together for outside world, but the minute I walked back through the doors at home, I fell apart completely, trying desperately hard to stay alive for my son. I didn't want to die. I wanted the darkness to end and the nightmares and the guilt to stop. My husband told me to speak to the welfare officer. I messaged her on social media whilst watching my son play at a soft play centre. We were moved 8 weeks later, but in the process, they had responded asking if I wanted help and if she could refer me to a veterans mental health service. I was very grateful for any help I could get. I'm still in touch with them to this day. We moved to Catterick, and this is where I met Rebecca from Humber Teaching NHS Foundation Trust. She became a solid part of our lives for 3 years. Together we worked closely on my goals and what I wanted to achieve. I just wanted to be better and happy without meds. We met monthly to begin with. Each time Rebecca gave me homework to do. I was evaluated for EMDR treatment again in mid-2019. This was until I found out I was pregnant again with my daughter. Rebecca helped me access help and support for the pregnancy-related mental health, which I was very anxious about due to the issues I had experienced with my son. We began to meet more regularly, building up my coping mechanisms for upcoming anniversaries and challenging dates such as bonfire night and remembrance. Rebecca instructed me not to hide away from fireworks, but to embrace them. So we all went out, went to an organised display. I personally thought she was crazy for suggesting this, as did my husband. It worked though. There was no flashbacks. I cried silent tears watching the fireworks. It caused me to remember my fallen friends rather than fall to the ground in fear or cause weeks of nightmares and flashbacks. Watching my son enjoy them and me being able to enjoy the fireworks with my son and my husband, it seemed like an unlikely event. Yet there was a field of hundreds of people giving it ooh, ah, at all the colours. Rebecca told me that I didn't need to attend any remembrance parades and I should remember my colleagues how I wanted to, rather than how society and the forces and ex-forces community expected me to remember them. This relieved some pressure that November usually brought with it. Soon there were details of my daughter's birth to deal with. Rebecca helped with the smoothing out of the wrinkles in my very strict birth plan. Helped me put rules in place to allow me to feel in control. She helped me learn to advocate for myself. She attended perinatal meetings in regards to my mental health during my pregnancy and birth. Just before I was due to give birth to my daughter, the country closed. We were locked in our houses, only allowed out for essentials. My daughter was born 5 days into a global pandemic and a national lockdown. I was homeschooling my son with a newborn. I received continued support from Rebecca through weekly phone calls for the first couple of months. She'd become able to read the tone of my voice and was able to tell when I was doing well and when I wasn't. When the world started to open again, I received at-home social distance visits fortnightly and phone calls on the weeks I didn't have a visit. It had been arranged that I would start EMDR treatment with the perinatal team in September 2020. This was done online. This was done at a time my husband had been sent away somewhere for weeks. I was left at home with 2 children, trying to sort my mental health out without my biggest supporter. I didn't have my children. I didn't have any childcare for my daughter due to me not being a key worker or being able to afford childcare or maternity pay. To enable the treatment to take place while my husband was away, a friend had to come and stay in the garden with my daughter. This continued until December, when my husband wasn't away. He was unable to get home to look after our daughter whilst I went through EMDR because of his work commitments. On the rare occasion he was able to get home, he was usually late, by which time I'd called my friend to look after my daughter. My EMDR treatment finished at the start of December and we were moving again in January 2021 for another posting. Rebecca had always been at the end of the phone throughout my treatment. She visited us in our new home, much closer to where she's based, right up until September 2021, being a constant in our lives and helping me overcome little hurdles I would encounter. They would seem small and minimal to regular people. However, there was a part of my brain that would blow them up bigger than they were. Rebecca had always encouraged me to follow my hopes and dreams, and nothing was impossible. I had come too far to give up. I applied to university not long after moving and was offered a place on the degree which would lead me to the job I dreamed of for 10 years. It says here that I'm going to be an operating department practitioner, but I qualified in September. I wouldn't be if it was. Sorry, I wouldn't be here if I hadn't been referred to Humber Tills. I'm forever grateful that Tills and Rebecca came into our lives when they did. I am proof that PTSD doesn't define who you are or a label that needs to be worn. Scars show where you've been. They do not dictate your future. Do I need to read that? Yeah, if we've got time. Whilst on my first operational tour of Iraq, I was written up to receive a Queen's Commendation for valuable service. I was presented a huge picture frame with my citation, the commendation, a copy of the London Gazette I was named in, and a small ribbon with the oak leaf on. This used to hang in my mum's hallway. She was immensely proud of it. I wasn't. It was just reminded me of my failings as a medic. I had failed to bring 3 guys home. They were returned to the UK in boxes. When I got married, my mum thought we should have it. For years, it moved with us being every quarter. I didn't want it to be hung. My husband insisted he would hang it and I would take it down. After treatment with Rebecca, the picture frame and its contents hang proudly by our front door. It's the last thing I see before I head upstairs in an evening, reminding me of what I've been through and what I have overcome to get to the point I am now.